Part 14. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 131. Chapter 131 Little Manman's Bad Taste 1. The image of Tanyu's stunningly handsome face when he met him again and being teased by him in the dressing room reappeared repeatedly in his mind. Thinking of the scene at that time, there was a ripple in my heart, and I couldn't help but smile at the corner of my mouth, and then it would collapse again, feeling depressed about Tanyu's teasing of her. Why is he so convinced that she is Jianyuman? He was so disguised that even his father, sister, boyfriend, and his family didn't recognize him. Is he so confident that she is? Or did he just see his younger siblings who looked exactly like his wife and couldn't help teasing her? What is Tanyu's identity? The eldest young master of the Tang family. Then why did he act honest in front of her when he was in San Francisco? What was his purpose? Even if it is said to be a trick on her, it is not a civil marriage. If it is not a trick on her, then why should it be hidden from her? What did he do after returning to China? Why can't I contact him? I heard from people in the Tang family that Tanyuj had nothing to do all day long, but based on her understanding of Mr. Tang, he was a thoughtful and capable scholar, and she was always surprised by his knowledge and accomplishments inadvertently. She refused to believe that Mr. Tang was a rich young man with no ideals and ambitions. Tanyuj now is a fog to her, full of secrets. The doorbell rang, and before Jianyuman even got up from the sofa, her pet dog Cupid rushed out excitedly, wagging its tail excitedly, twisting its whole body rapidly, and howling from its mouth. Seeing Cupid's reaction, Jianyuman immediately knew who was coming and ran to open the door without even looking through the peephole to see who was outside. As soon as the door opened, a super-large blue enchantress was stuffed into Jianyuman's arms, and she was holding a large bag of food in her right hand. Cupid was already shamelessly pestering the fairy. He stood on his feet and asked the fairy to hug him. He couldn't do it without hugging him, so he kept pestering the fairy excitedly. Xianying moved his feet slowly, closed the door, took off his shoes, and walked in with difficulty. Cupid was still whining for a hug, and Xianying, with a bright smile on his face, knelt down and picked up the dog's petite body, and walked in with the dog in both hands. Xianying didn't talk to Jianyuman. He just sat on the sofa with his dog in his arms. He took out the food he brought and opened it. He saw that they were all dog snacks, dog biscuits, dog bones, dog cans, etc. When Cupid saw the snacks that belonged to him, he excitedly jumped out of Xianying's arms and plunged into the pile of snacks, rolling around in the pile. Jianyuman looked at this picture and looked at the blue enchantress in her arms. Suddenly I felt that I was just watching by the way, and his purpose was the dog. I was inexplicably envious of Cupid for having someone to bring him food. Xianying played with Cupid, and Jianyuman silently put the blue enchantress into the vase. Because there were a lot of them, half an hour after she finished them, the whole house was filled with the blue enchantress's flower arrangements. And Cupid lay on the lap of Xianying, touched by him with some love, and watched the variety show on the TV series with his eyes. Ying, you're not just here to see the dog. Jianyuman took out a plate of dessert and put it on the coffee table. It was chocolate mousse that she made herself. Xianying actually had several empty plates of caramel pudding on the table, which were obviously dried up while Jianyuman was arranging flowers. No, today is to eat the lunch made by Xiaojian. Xianying blinked his innocent eyes and looked at Jianyuman. His eyes were full of excitement, and he quickly picked up the chocolate mousse and ate it. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 132. Chapter 132 Xiao Manman's Bad Taste 2. Sure enough, this guy is here to make a living. If you don't go to the Three Treasures Palace for any reason, you are talking about immortals and wise men. Either they come to see the dogs, or they come to eat. Looking at the time again, it was almost time to start making lunch. Sure enough, the time was accurate. Qian Yuman washed her hands and cooked, and Xian Ying couldn't help at all. He would only bring the dog to steal food while she was cooking, and then was chased by Qian Yuman. Accidentally, Qian Yuman became Xian Ying's cook, but she still enjoyed the admiration from others after enjoying the food she cooked. After finishing the carefully prepared Western-style lunch, Xian Ying couldn't wait to eat it, almost to the point of devouring it. However, his posture was still very elegant, but the speed was a bit fast. It seemed that he was well educated in dining etiquette. Looking at Xian Ying's dining opposite, Qian Yuman couldn't help but think of Mr. Tang. It wasn't Tang Yuj who returned to China, he was the person sitting opposite to eat. Is he really an idle young man in China? So why did he insist on coming back? Isn't it great to be abroad? Moreover, there are so many people in the Tang family, and there is also a younger brother who is excellent in all aspects, so it is inevitable that he will be compared with him. What kind of person is Mr. Tang? Why is the way he behaves in front of her so different from how he behaves in front of others? Ying Qian Yuman asked, dragging her chin with her hand. Xian Ying, who was engrossed in eating, raised his eyes in confusion and blinked innocently. You said, if someone cheated on you, or deliberately concealed something from you, but you were not sure whether his concealment was good or bad for you, what would you do? Ask clearly in person. How simple. Why don't you ask me face to face? It's not good to ask in person, Xian Ying bit his lower lip and thought. Then investigate secretly. First determine what the other party's purpose is and whether it will be detrimental to you, and then make a decision. Investigating secretly? Qian Yuman raised his eyebrows. This was a good idea. She was angry at Mr. Tang's deception and concealment, and was curious about why he had neglected her during this period, why he wanted to marry her, and why he behaved differently abroad before. I want to give Mr. Tang some punishment and let him try the experience of not being able to find a wife, and then make a decision based on his performance. So the best way now is to investigate him secretly. Ying, it's good to talk to you. Every time I can't figure something out, I suddenly get enlightened, Qian Yuman said happily. Xian Ying smiled and continued to eat. At the end of the meal, Qian Yuman kicked Xian Ying to wash the dishes. Every time he washed the dishes, he was rewarded with washing the dishes. Waiting for Xian Ying to finish his work, Qian Yuman held a Lolita skirt in her hand. The red and white skirt was particularly delicate and beautiful. Qian Yuman found it when she was shopping last time. At that time, she thought it would definitely suit Xian Ying. Xian Ying's expression changed instantly when he saw the clothes. Xiao Qian, what are you going to do? Xian Ying's expression was frightened, and he dropped the dog in his arms and ran away. Let's go. If you leave, don't even think about eating the food I cooked anymore. Qian Yuman smiled strangely and took out a cute rabbit ear headband in her hand. Xian Ying's face fell. Chu Chu looked at Qian Yuman pitifully, holding his face in his hands and wailing. Xiao Qian, can't you introduce me to the couple? Cute brother, sister, I finally found a cute boy like you. Please satisfy my sister. After you change your clothes, my sister will take you out shopping for clothes. Buy many cute skirts. Xian Ying roared, refused, and cried in various ways, but in the end he could not escape Qian Yuman's clutches. I cursed in my heart, perverted Xiao Qian. I finished the old article. The boss has retired from the circle. Sister article, the story of Xiao Zhe's brothers and the domineering president Lan Tianlu. Xiao Zhe and his friends made countless guest appearances, which is a bit spoiler. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 133. Chapter 133 Secretly Investigating Mr. Tang. Through Xian Yingzhe, Qian Yuman purchased a bunch of high-tech equipment, including telescopes, bugs, pinhole cameras and other equipment, and prepared to carry out espionage tasks. Task 1. Investigate Mr. Tang's secret. Qian Yuman decided not to recognize Tang Yuzhe for the time being. She wanted to secretly investigate what he was doing and monitor whether he had any sexual relations behind her back. Although the two are not together because of love, there is no foundation of love between the two, and she does not allow one party to cheat in the marriage. She hates the appearance of a third party in the marriage. If she found out that Mr. Tang was cheating on her and having with other women, she would throw out the divorce agreement and disappear from him forever with the baby in her belly. She cannot tolerate any betrayal. Early in the morning, Qian Yuman ran to squat near Tang's house. She was dressed in a black tights, her hair tied into a ponytail, a cap on her head and sunglasses and a mask to wrap herself up. She bought an ordinary black car and squatted in the car waiting boringly for Tang Yuzhe to come out. She played with her mobile phone and read news online from time to time, which was still very boring. I stayed there for several hours, watching Tang Feishan drive out to work, Lu Rong going out for beauty treatment, Tang Xingai going out to school, some servants coming in and out, but Tang Yuzhe was nowhere to be seen. Why hasn't Mr. Tang come out yet? It's almost noon. He usually gets up at 6 o'clock to go out for a run and has breakfast on time at 7 o'clock. If there is no class, he will stay at home with her or take her out to play. If she is not at home for class, he will go out on time at 7:30 and never stay at home for a long time. After waiting for 4 hours, Mr. Tang did not come out, and she fell asleep from waiting. She feels very sleepy. She has become particularly sleepy after becoming pregnant. Baby, please wait for a while and wait for mommy to investigate what bad things your daddy is doing. Don't induce your mommy to sleep. Finally, when Qian Yuman almost fell asleep, Tang Yuzhe drove out in his orange high-end sports car. Qian Yuman was so excited that she finally came out. When she saw the sports car, she couldn't help but complain in her heart. Two-faced person. In San Francisco, he drives a black luxury car, which is low-key, luxurious, and connotative. In China, he actually drives a high-end sports car that has a 100% chance of turning heads. Even if she wasn't sure that he was her husband Tang Yuzhe, she suspected that he also had an evil twin brother with completely different personalities, clothes, tastes, and cars. Qian Yuman followed Tang Yuzhe cautiously, wanting to see what he was doing when he went out. According to her sister's inquiry, the eldest young master of the Tang family was a playful person. After returning to China for half a month, I was almost never at home except for sleeping, and played every day. Sometimes I travel to other cities to play for several days without returning home, and I often attend parties. The entertainment life of a typical rich man. Qian Yuman followed Tang Yuzhe to a high-end restaurant. In order to investigate him nearby, she also went in to eat, and her stomach growled with hunger. Pregnant women couldn't bear to be hungry. Although they had stored a lot of food in the car, they all went away unknowingly while waiting, leaving them with a little less to eat. Qian Yuman followed Mr. Tang in timidly. She stopped when he walked into the restaurant and looked at the door before entering. Who did he make an appointment with? Could it be the wildflowers outside? Thinking of this, Qian Yuman's eyes brightened and she scanned the restaurant eagerly. There were only 3 tables dining alone. At one table was a sissy dressed in a coquettish manner, who looked like a homosexual. One possibility quickly came to mind. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 134. Chapter 134 Mr. Tang's Little Lover? Is Mr. Tang really a gay? The reason why he married her abroad and made her pregnant was so that she could give birth to a baby for him and turn him into a monster when he returned home. Why did he disappear and just get tired of being with his little lover every day? Seeing that Mr. Tang passed by the sissy without stopping, she breathed a sigh of relief, but she started thinking wildly again. There are two more tables, one table is for a 50-year-old lady. Does Mr. Tang like to be groomed into a pretty boy? Shouldn't his family's wealth be used to support his mistress? Why don't you find a young and beautiful woman? This is not the point, neither is being young and beautiful. At another table is a beautiful woman with a cold face and above average appearance. The beauty is wearing a professional woman's suit. There are information beside her, and she is holding a document in her hand to read. This person is of a similar age, looks to be less than 30, and is meticulously dressed. Could it be that Mr. Tang has changed his taste and prefers professional women to the glamorous type like her? When she saw Tang Yuj sitting in front of the cold beauty, she was relieved for a moment. At least he was not a pretty boy or gay. She held her breath to see if he would do anything sorry to her. Qian Yuman found a location where he could monitor them and be close. Tang Yuj walked up to the cold beauty with a smile. When the cold beauty saw him coming, she immediately stood up, folded her hands on her belly, and bowed slightly at 15 degrees. Tang Yuj walked over and sat down without saying hello. As soon as Tang Yuj sat down, the food was served, and there was no verbal communication between the two. Qian Yuman's eyes almost popped out of his head. He observed their behavior with the naked eye and judged that the two of them were very familiar. The cool beauty was respectful to Tang Yuj. They didn't say a word when they met, and they didn't feel rude. Their expressions were natural. It could be seen that the two of them were very familiar with each other and there was no need for extra formal etiquette. Looking at Tang Yuj's behavior of immediately serving the food in the restaurant as soon as he sat down, the cool beauty ordered Tang Yuj's meal in advance and timed it very accurately so that it could be served shortly after he sat down. There is something fishy about the two people in front of me. Tang Yuj was eating lunch, raising his eyebrows and smiling, and said something to the cool and cold beauty opposite. It's a pity that the seats in this Western restaurant are widely spaced, so you can't hear what they are saying at all. You can only see it clearly with the naked eye. What are they talking about? I really want to know. Not long after Qian Yuman sat down, the waiter came over and handed her the menu, and kindly helped her shield her from prying eyes. Miss, menu. Qian Yuman took the menu and saw the prices on the menu. She was so frightened that she exclaimed. She immediately realized that this was a Western restaurant and asked to be quiet. She immediately buried herself in the menu in embarrassment. Do you need me to introduce it to you? The waiter thought Qian Yuman couldn't understand the menu because the entire menu was in English. Qian Yuman shook her head, swallowing with some difficulty, looking at the menu in her hand and wanting to order a glass of water. As an English teacher, I have studied abroad for 3 years and am a top student who graduated from a world-class university. How could I not understand this? I was frightened by the prices on the menu. The cheapest item on the menu costs 4 figures, and it is an ordinary fruit salad, not to mention the more expensive ones, which are sky-high prices for her. Sure enough, she doesn't understand the world of rich people eating. Qian Yuman ordered the cheapest steak, which cost 5,555 yuan. The meat hurt her to death. Qian Yuman waved her hand to the waiter to place the order. She wanted to continue to spy on Mr. Tang. The waiter saw that Qian Yuman was dressed and behaved a little strangely. Before leaving, she couldn't help but look at him curiously. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 135. Chapter 135 Behaving Suspiciously. As soon as the waiter left, Qian Yuman immediately looked at Tang Yuj and the others. When she saw the cold beauty smiling slightly and talking and laughing with Mr. Tang, her eyes almost popped out of her head. Smiling so happily, I don't know what they are talking about. Jian has decided that once she sees them acting too intimately, kissing and hugging each other, she will directly run over and fight. Let the other party know that there will be no good consequences for stealing her husband, and that they don't mind tearing up the mistress in public. Jian looked at each other for a long time. Apart from talking and laughing, the two of them didn't even look at each other ambiguously. They behaved well. They were said to be young lovers who came out to have an affair, but more like they came out to talk about things. The cold beauty brought a lot of documents and materials, and from time to time she would pick up the documents and hand them to Tangyuj. The cold beauty handed Tangyuj the information she just read. "Boss, please read the content and sign if you have no questions," said the cold beauty Murong 11. Tangyuj was eating his steak, raised his eyes to look at her, but did not take the information in her hand. "Xiao 11, could you please stop talking to me about work every time I go out to eat? This will make me suspect that my charm has declined. I always thought that in this society that relies on appearance to make a living, I would be able to live happily. Shuakai, every time I'm with you I suspect I'll starve to death." Murong 11 put down the materials in his hands, with a faint smile on his cold face. "Boss, if I indulge in your male lust, I will probably be fired by you, and then I will have no food to eat, and I will starve to death." Tangyuj rolled his eyes. Boring, boring. His wife was more interesting. Picked up the information on the table, flipped through it twice, and then signed his name. "But boss, if you want to prove your charm, just look around, there are countless pairs of eyes staring at you." Tangyuj raised his eyebrows and smiled evilly. "This young master is endlessly charming." Murong 11 put away the information. Today's goal was achieved and he could eat in peace. Murong 11 burst out laughing, teasing her without any shame. "Well, you are very charming, but be careful of losing your virginity. There is a mysterious woman behind you at 3 o'clock. She came in with you just now, and she has been setting her sights on us since she came in. So boss, protect yourself when you go back. Myself, I don't want to hear about you losing your virginity tomorrow. A woman is following you." Tangyuj looked back and saw that it was Jian who was following him all the way. When Tangyuj looked over, she looked elsewhere unnaturally. Tangyuj saw the woman wrapped up, immersed in eating, wearing sunglasses on her head, trying hard to cover herself with the hat on her head, and she was indeed behaving suspiciously. Looking around again, she was an outlier in the attire she wore to dine here. Fortunately, it was not a rule that formal attire was required here, otherwise Jian wouldn't be able to come in and take a peek. Tangyuj stared at the disguised Jian for several times and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Why did the figure look so familiar? For a moment I couldn't remember where I had seen it. Jian here lowered her head with a guilty conscience and did not dare to look at Tangyuj again. He looked back just now and almost scared her to death. He wouldn't recognize her. She was so well disguised that she probably didn't recognize her. She didn't dare to look at them now, so she could only occasionally look at them with the corner of her eyes. She mainly ate her steak seriously. This steak cost 5,555 yuan, so she couldn't waste it. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 136. Chapter 136, Crash. Jian then immersed herself in eating. The food here was too expensive. She only dared to eat a piece of steak and a salad. She didn't dare to order anything else, for fear that this meal would make her poor. As a pregnant woman, Jian couldn't fit enough food into her teeth, and she was still hungry after eating it. After finishing her meal, she drank water for a long time, but still felt that she had to buy some more food, otherwise she would not find out Mr. Tang's secret and she would starve to death first. Tang Yuj and Murong 11 finished their meal and left the restaurant one after another. Qian Yuman hurriedly paid the bill and walked out to look around, but did not see them. Strangeness. Why did it disappear in the blink of an eye? He was running too fast. She just paid the bill. Qian Yuman felt a twinge of pain when she thought of the 7 or 8,000 yuan she had just swiped on her card. Money. It was almost her month's salary, and she had spent such a big meal without earning any money. She would still think carefully about whether to follow Mr. Tang into a high-end restaurant in the future. Never mind. I won't follow him today. From observation, it can be seen that there is nothing wrong with the cool beauty and Tang Yuj. She still goes to the temple to worship the 5 internal organs. Qian Yuman gave up following her, but still wanted to take good care of herself, and drove to a large supermarket. Pushing the cart, Qian Yuman threw delicious food into the cart when she saw it, and it was full within a short time. Looking at the food in the car, Qian Yuman was very satisfied. Now there would be no shortage of food, and she was not afraid of starving herself while following Tang Yuj. Qian Yuman's eyes lit up when she saw the snacks not far away. They were the sour plums that Xian Yingj bought for her last time. They were very good at anti-vomiting and delicious. She always thought about them after eating them. She happily walked over and raised her arms to pick up the top row of sour plums. Even though she was 1.68 meters tall, she still couldn't reach it. It's so annoying, why are they placed so high? Qian Yuman muttered angrily, wondering whether the supermarket would do business with such delicious sour plums placed so high. A tall figure came behind her, raised his hand to help her take down the sour plum, and handed it to her. For you. A pleasant male voice came from behind. The moment she heard the voice, Qian Yuman stiffened, her face changed drastically, and she did not dare to take the sour plum he handed over. The familiar voice and the slender and beautiful hand holding the sour plum definitely belonged to Tang Yuj. Before, she had praised his hands as being more beautiful and slender than women. She knew it was him without turning around to confirm. Oh my God! What happened? Why was he helping her get food by such a coincidence when he was around? Tang Yuj handed the sour plum to her again. Don't you want sour plums? Yes. Qian Yuman lowered his voice and took the sour plum in his hand, but when he just touched it, he raised the sour plum again. Qian Yuman angrily raised her head and glared at Tang Yuj, who was teasing her. Then she remembered that she couldn't be recognized by him, so she immediately lowered her head. What are you doing? Tang Yuj looked evil, put his hands behind his back, and bent down to approach Qian Yuman. Qian Yuman took a step back hastily and lowered his head with a guilty conscience. Why are you so close to me? Qian Yuman's breathing slowed down nervously. Could it be that he recognized her? She was wrapped up so tightly. Are you nervous? Men and women are not intimate. Qian Yuman took another step back and lowered her peaked cap. Fortunately, she had not taken off her disguise just now, otherwise she would have bumped into her in the supermarket and her plan would have failed. Oh, men and women don't get close to each other. I thought you liked my closeness very much. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 137. Chapter 137. Mr. Tang flirts with girls. Tang Yuj smiled and approached Qian Yuman again, his evil eyes looking at the woman who wrapped him tightly with interest. How is this possible? You, don't think nonsense. I am a good woman from a good family. My mother said to keep a distance from men. Qian Yuman stuttered with guilt, looking at her bad mouth. A woman from a good family. Tang Yuj raised his eyebrows, feeling more and more familiar with the woman's tone of voice that he was following her secretly. What decent woman would secretly stalk other men? Qian Yuman's body trembled and she looked at him in horror. Did she find out that she was following him? She thought she was well disguised and not discovered. You, what are you talking nonsense about? I'm shopping in the supermarket, he refused to admit it. You were clearly looking at me secretly in the Western restaurant just now, and you said you weren't following me. The package was so tight, maybe it's the daughter of someone who has a crush on me. As he spoke, Tanyuj reached out to pull off Jian Yuman's mask. Jian Yuman was so frightened that she took 2 steps back, keeping a certain distance from Tanyuj, lest he suddenly become crazy and take off her mask. What are you doing? Speak politely and don't move your hands or feet. Tanyuj chuckled. Seeing her frightened look, he wondered if he would eat her. I just think you are familiar, and I want to take off your mask to confirm whether you are the person I know. You have the wrong person. Jian Yuman denied it. Is that so? Take off the mask to confirm. Tanyuj took action again. Jian Yuman pulled the car and took 2 steps back. She was so hasty that her left foot tripped her right foot, causing her body to lose weight and fall backwards. Tanyuj, with quick eyes and quick hands, stretched out his hand to pull her into his arms. He held her slender hand with one hand and held her waist with the other to prevent Jian Yuman from falling. Jian Yuman was startled, thinking she was going to fall. The floor in the supermarket was cold and hard. What if she had fetal force? You need to be more careful in your behavior from now on. At this moment, Jian Yuman was still in Tanyuj's arms, his hands were still on her waist, and his charming eyes were looking into hers. Feeling the burning gaze, Jian Yuman looked up, and her charming eyes captured her soul through her sunglasses. I have to admit that Mr. Tang is still so handsome today. He is wearing a dark purple casual suit, which makes his skin color fairer and his facial features more charming. This was the first time today that the two of them were so close, and they could see his long eyelashes, slowly fluttering, and the beautiful curve of the corners of his mouth. Sure enough, Mr. Tang is a more charming person than a flower. All the beautiful people want to dress him in women's clothes. I wonder if he will be more charming than the immortal Yingzhi. Japanese style is not suitable for him. Maybe the ancient beauty's dress would be better to cover up his strong figure. Why is he 1.88 meters tall? This height is not perfect for cos. He should be shorter. You can only take close-up photos at most, not full-body photos, otherwise you will know that he is a man who is prettier than a woman just by looking at his height. Tanyuj curled his lips in a sinister way and looked at the woman in front of him, who was looking stupid at him in a funny way, and even more suspected that the person in front of him was his wife. He reached out to take off the mask from Jian Yuman's face, and then she realized that she was thinking wildly again. Jian Yuman reached out to cover her mask, and her peaked cap fell to the ground because of her actions. What are you doing? You think you act a lot like my wife. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 138. Chapter 138. Fierce Eyes. You think you behave a lot like my wife. Tanyuj stretched out his hand again and had to take off the mask covering Jian Yuman. Cha, Mr. Tang, can you recognize this? Or do you have many wives, and every time you pick up girls, they all say they look like your wife? Jian Yuman raised her foot and stepped on his foot hard, pushing the person away from her face. Who is your wife? Do you go out to recognize your wife every day? You can't change your lines when picking up girls, you're a pervert. Yelled at Tanyuj for a while, dropped the cart of snacks he had just selected and ran away, running very fast, fearing that Tanyuj would catch up with him. Tanyuj, who was in pain from being stepped on, looked up and saw no one. It might be his wife, who had been missing for a few days. He immediately chased after her and waited for a few seconds before chasing after anyone else. Tanyuj looked around the supermarket but still didn't see anyone. He went back to the distance and picked up her fallen cap. Hunting his nose close and smelling it, the faint fragrance of Jian Yuman still lingered, and he was even more certain that the person following him was Jian Yuman. Although he covered himself up tightly, his behavior, tone of voice, and guilty actions all resemble Jianyuman's. What is this little woman doing? She turned off her cell phone and refused to contact him. She also followed him furtively, wondering what she was plotting with her sister. There must be something fishy about denying your identity today. But it is certain that she is around him and will be fine for the time being. As long as she is in S City, I don't believe she can't be found. Jianyuman quickly ran down to the underground parking lot and drove away. She turned around to make sure that the aggressive orange high-end sports car was not following her, and then she breathed a sigh of relief. Took off the mask and glasses and looked into the car mirror, frowning. I'm dressed like this, can Mr. Tang still recognize me? I was surprised. Although they are husband and wife, they have only known each other for more than a month. Are his eyes dazzling? Even he couldn't recognize her in the way she was dressed, so what on earth did he use to identify himself? The more I think about it, the more I feel that Tangyuj is talking nonsense. He must be using this trick to pick up girls everywhere. Snored. This is unreasonable. God, please give me back my honest, gentle, and handsome nerd husband. Don't let your husband go around showing off his electronics to pick up girls. Being deceived into marriage, defrauded. The husband she fears most is a playboy, and now she suspects that Tangyuj is an aphrodisiac level who seduces people wherever he goes. Jianyuman became more and more unhappy as she thought about it. She drove to the supermarket to buy groceries and went home. She was terrified along the way, fearing that Tangyuj would suddenly pop out from the corner again. Back home, Chi-Lil happened to come to see her sister. When she saw her sister's hands full of dishes, she immediately came forward with a faint smile on her indifferent face. Sister, are you going to cook? She fell in love with her sister's cooking after eating it last time. Come and help, Jianyuman said with a smile. Chi-Lili helps Jianyuman wash vegetables. She can't even cut the most basic vegetables well, and has been raised by Chi Zhan as a rich young lady who has no fingers in Yangchun Shui. Jianyuman grew up living with her mother outside, and her mother worked outside. She cooked every day and waited for her mother to come home from get off work. Over the years, she developed good cooking skills. Plates of dishes were served, and Jianyuman looked at her sister with a smile. Why did you come to see me today? Chi-Lil put down the chopsticks in her hand. Sister, I want to ask you something. Can you take the exam for me tomorrow? I've been busy lately and haven't had time to study. I have my final exam tomorrow. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 139. Chapter 139. A chance encounter with the three Tang brothers. Jianyuman looked up at her sister in surprise. When did your grades get so bad that you need me to take the exam for you? Although Chi-Lili's grades are not as good as hers, they are not bad either. Do you need her to take the exam for you? Chi-Lili smiled awkwardly. I beg you. Jianyuman narrowed his eyes slightly. What's the test? I can't help you with professional courses. I studied French in college, and I remember you studied architectural design. There is a big difference. Mathematics, you know my math scores have always been mediocre, please help me, just this once. Although Jianyuman felt a little strange, she couldn't resist her sister's plea, so she agreed to help her take the exam. The next morning, Jianyuman took the final exam in place of her younger sister. She almost got full marks in math at Jianyuman High School. A few points would always be deducted for liberal arts subjects like Chinese. If the answers and solutions were correct in math, she would not be deducted. Point. The math test is not difficult for her at all, and it is no problem to give her sister a score of 70 or 80. She went home after the exam. There were still classes in class tomorrow, and she had to go back to prepare for tomorrow's class. Qian Yuman just walked out of the school gate when a car stopped in front of her. Lili. The car window rolled down, revealing the familiar face of Qian Yuman, she and Qi Lili's father Qi Zhan. Seeing her father, the frightened expression on Qian Yuman's face flashed away, and she almost turned around and ran away. Why did Dad come to school to find Lili? Lili, why are you in a daze? Father Qi smiled and waved to his daughter, asking her to get in the car quickly. Qian Yuman had no choice but to go in. If she turned around and ran away, her father would definitely notice the problem. She didn't want to face her father as Qian Yuman now, which would only make them more embarrassed. Getting in the car and sitting in the passenger seat, Qian Yuman looked ahead with an expressionless expression, her heart pounding all the time. He took out his cell phone and sent a bunch of text messages to his sister, saying that if he met his father, he should come and save her. As a result, I received a text message from Qi Lili, have a nice meal. Your sister. The meal was anything but enjoyable. How did you go in the exam? Dad Qi asked. Not bad, Qian Yuman responded coldly. Shouldn't my Mr. Lei say that he will get full marks if he takes any test? Qi's father teased with a smile. Qian Yuman twitched the corner of her mouth lightly, but her heart was empty. Are Dad and Lili's relationship so relaxed? She is so envious. Have you thought about what to eat today to celebrate the end of your exam? The restaurant you mentioned last night is not available, so I'm afraid I have to find another place to celebrate you, Dad Qi said regretfully. Qian Yuman glanced at her father in shock, then immediately calmed down her expression and clenched her hands into fists. She said why she suddenly asked her for help. Since the third grade of elementary school, her sister has not asked her to help with exams. She also wondered how her younger sister's grades would be required to take the math test for her. It turns out that this was all her plan, a ploy for her to spend more time with her father. The next time a similar offer comes up, she will refuse it decisively. Asshole sister, professional cheating sister. Qi Lili had made an appointment with Qi Zhan yesterday, and after her final exam was over, the two of them went to have a good meal to celebrate. That's why Qian Yuman met Dad Qi, who was picking up his daughter after the exam. In the end, Yuki's father chose a good restaurant for dinner. As soon as they entered, they met an acquaintance, the three Tang brothers. As soon as the Tang brothers sat down, they happened to meet Qi Zhan and his daughter, who were bringing their daughter to dine. This scared Qian Yuman to death, and she sighed in her heart that the world is really small. For those who don't have twins or a sister who is a top student, don't cheat like them. Dear concubines who are about to start school, please study hard and don't delay your studies by reading articles, otherwise I will send your disobedient concubines to the cold palace. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 140. Chapter 140. You won't expose it to your face. A city is not a small one. You can see one of the three brothers of the Tang family everywhere. This time, the three of them met together. They walked to the box talking and laughing. Qian Yuman wanted to pretend not to notice and avoid them, but Tang Xingai had already noticed her, waved to them happily, and immediately ran to Qian Yuman. Tang Xingai greeted with a bright smile. Second sister-in-law, what a coincidence. What a coincidence, Qian Yuman responded coldly, but she was complaining in her heart. She didn't want to see you at all. Could it be that the entire city belongs to your Tang family? I can meet you every time I have a meal. Uncle Qi, Lili Tang Feishan was a gentle man, unlike Tang Xingai, who jumped up and down. He walked slowly, greeted Qi Zhan politely, and looked at his girlfriend with gentle eyes. Qi Zhan naturally beamed when he saw his future son-in-law. Tang Yuj walked over gracefully and directly looked at Qi Lili, who was exactly the same as his wife, staring at her with a deep gaze. "Uncle Qi, do you want to have dinner together?" They came to a Chinese restaurant, and they could find a private room to dine together, so Qi Zhan naturally happily agreed. Tang Feishan walked to his girlfriend with a gentle smile and reached out to take Qian Yuman into his arms. Tang Yuz's eyes darkened and he walked to his younger brother. The two brothers put their arms around his shoulders and walked inside. "Brother," Tang Feishan looked at his brother strangely. "Come on, don't be too slow." Tang Yuz half dragged his brother towards the box. Tang Feishan smiled helplessly at his girlfriend before being dragged away by his elder brother. Qian Yuman looked at Tang Yuz with complicated eyes. Now that she saw him, she felt unhappy. Faced with his cold and arrogant greeting, she gave a faint hum. After ordering food, Qi Zhan took his future son-in-law and talked and laughed. Qian Yuman sat between her father and Tang Feishan. Seeing the two of them chatting happily, she wanted to switch places with her father. They were sitting at a small round table. Qi Zhan and Tang Yuj sat next to each other. Tang Yuj's gaze was like a torch, constantly moving around Qian Yuman. "Brothers and sisters, I always feel like we have met before somewhere." Tang Yuj's eyes were a little too hot, with a faint smile on his lips. "I've never seen it," Qian Yuman said coldly. Tang Yuj raised his eyebrows and looked at her interestingly. "Really? I think we are very familiar, as if we have known each other for a long time." Qi Zhan heard them chatting and joined in with a smile. "What? Mr. Tang and Lili I have met before. I can't say I've met her before, I just think my sister-in-law looks like someone I know." Qian Yuman's scalp felt numb and she gave him a meaningful look. What did he want to say? He would not intend to expose her directly in front of so many people, or directly announce to everyone that she is his wife. She was certain that the Tang family did not know that Tang Yuj was married. If she knew that the eldest son of the Tang family was marrying a twin sister who was exactly the same as his younger brother's fiancée, she would be intoxicated just thinking about it. She is not afraid of having her true identity revealed, but is afraid of embarrassment, especially since she and her father still have a lot of problems. Being exposed will only embarrass each other. She is not ready to face her father as Qian Yuman yet. Also, her sister's engagement had just passed, and she was not sure whether it would have any impact on her sister's marriage now that they knew she was Qian Yuman. Qi Zhan was just saying it casually, but when he heard Tang Yuj mentioning someone he resembled, his body was shocked. Who? End of this chapter.